Hello and welcome to the class. My name is Jo. In today's class, we're going to be looking at map questions in IELTS Academic Writing Task 1. Now remember that after the class, if you have any questions at all, you can click on this chat icon at the top of your web page and you can send us a message. This is the first of 2 classes on this topic and it will last about 20 minutes. First, we're going to look at vocabulary for talking about physical changes, and then we're going to look at grammar for maps, including passive forms. So by the end of this class, hopefully you should be feeling more confident about how to write about a map in the writing test, specifically in terms of vocabulary and grammatical forms. During the class, there will be some questions for you to answer. I will tell you when you need to do this, and I will give you 10 to 15 seconds to do so. Okay, let's get started. So, talking about physical changes when we are describing a map. Why do we need to do this? Well, task 1 can sometimes be 2 maps. You have 2 maps and you have to talk about both of them and compare them. Now, maps show physical changes in a location from one time to another, so we need to make sure we've got the specific language that we need to talk about these changes. We're going to have a look at some examples of this in a moment. So what language is used? As we've just said, language to talk about locations and also verbs of change. Let's have a look at some examples. So to describe the changes that we can see on the map, there are a series of useful verbs that we can use to do so. Let's have a look at some of these examples. Okay, for example, if something has been created, maybe in one map something is not there, there could be an empty space, and in that space something has been built or constructed. So anything new that has appeared on the map, we could use these verbs. Something has been built or constructed or added, and in some case we could also use the verb installed. We install new facilities, for example. Conversely, maybe something has disappeared, something has been destroyed, and we can see that it's no longer on one of the maps, the second map that we have when we compare the two. We could use these verbs to describe that change. So if something has been knocked down, pulled down, torn down or demolished, we usually use those 4 verbs to talk about buildings, so man-made structures, some type of building that has disappeared, it's been taken away. If we think about natural areas, think about fields, think about woods, some type of natural space, we could talk about cut down trees, for example. We would cut down trees, we would cut down woods. Fields could be cleared. This would just mean that they were removed, maybe taken away completely so that they could be replaced with something else. Remove is a more common verb. And flatten we can also use to talk about natural areas. Maybe an area of woods was flattened, but we can also use this to talk about tall buildings. No, tall buildings that stand maybe were flattened or demolished or torn down, for example, on the map that you have. Okay, change. Let's imagine that on the first map we have a building, on the second map that same building exists, but it now has a different purpose, it now does a different thing. So in that case often we have an old building that's been changed into a new building with a new purpose. We could talk about that building being renovated, which means made new. Reconstructed. We don't know maybe if the old building was actually completely demolished and a completely new building was put into its place. So this could be another verb that we could use. A building could be converted into something else or transformed into something else. We could also talk about one building being replaced with another building. So these are all important verbs that we could use to describe those changes. Move and relocate. Let's imagine that we have a business park in the northwest of the first map, and we see that in the second map this has moved to the south, for example. So the building exists, but it's changed location. So it can be moved or relocated. We could use both of those verbs. Something could get bigger or smaller. Let's imagine that something has been expanded or extended, enlarged. Then the building that was small before has now been made bigger. Grow. We can also use grow mainly for natural spaces. No? Things grow, plants grow, trees grow. So if we have a natural area that we see has got bigger, we could talk about how that area has grown. We could also use increase in size to show these changes of something getting bigger. If something has got smaller, maybe something has been reduced, we could say that it has shrunk or decreased in size. So this is some useful vocabulary that we can use to talk about the different changes that we might see in the buildings or natural spaces in the maps that we get. Another very important thing with maps is describing where on the map we see these things. So it's really important that we think about different phrases that we can use to describe those locations. We can see some examples here on the screen. We use in the to talk about the position in the center, in the north, in the south, in the east, in the west. We could use to the north, south, east, or west of something. Let's imagine that the hotel is to the north of the river, for example. So we take two places and then we show where they are in relation to each other. Again, we can do the same with next to, beside, above, or below. We're showing where one thing is in relation to something else on the map. And the same with to the right of something or to the left of something. So we're going to have a look now at a map, and we're going to have a look at how we can use some of this useful language here in context. Okay, so this map shows the town of Westley. I'm going to zoom in on it for you. Now it shows the town of Westley in 1815 and also now. So we can see, or we can imagine without looking, that lots of changes may have taken place in that time. If we look at the 1815 map, we can see from the north looking down, we have Lord Westley's house, we have an area of woods, we have a lake. We have a big residential area here of houses with a market square and a town hall, and lots of fields. These fields are a large part of this map. We've also got the coach inn, we've got a church. Now, if we compare that to the map on the right, I think probably the first thing we notice is that those fields have disappeared. There's a railway line in its place now, going all the way to the top of the map. And what was previously just a residential area with houses is now business and residential area. And we have this new shopping, business and residential area at the bottom of the map. The woods have also disappeared. We now have Lenton housing estates in their place. And Lord Westley's house is now the Red Lion and the Lenton Hotel. So we can see lots of changes that have taken place between 1815 and now. We're going to have a look at some questions, and you're going to choose the correct words to complete these sentences about this map. Here is sentence 1. Okay, Lenton Woods has been demolished, knocked down or cut down and replaced with, for or to a housing estate. Now, if you look at the first question on your screen below this video, you will see this question and these options, and I'd like you to just take 10 to 15 seconds to choose the correct options to complete this sentence. I'm going to zoom in again on the map so that we can see. and I'll give you 10 to 15 seconds to answer now. Okay, let's have a look at the answer. So Lenton Woods has been, the best word here probably is cut down. As we said before, if we're talking about a natural area, a natural space, we can use cut down to talk about it. Demolished and knocked down is probably words we would use more to talk about buildings and man-made structures. And replaced with for or to, we want to choose the answer replaced with. This is a preposition that always goes with the word replaced. It's really important that we pay attention to prepositions in English. They're called dependent prepositions because they always go with the same word. Fortunately, there aren't very many rules in relation to this, but it's very important that when you learn a new word, you also learn the dependent preposition that goes with it and try to memorize that. Okay, let's have a look at the next question. Okay, below this video, you will see another question that says the fields in the southeast, northwest, southwest have been cleared, flattened, renovated, and a cinema and railway station have been built, constructed, or enlarged. Now, in this case, we have potentially more than one correct answer for some of the options. So again, I'm going to zoom in on the map for a few seconds so that you can see in more detail. You can also see the map in the question below the video, and I'm going to give you a few seconds to answer the question. Okay, let's have a look. So the fields in the southwest. Remember, we saw those here in the southwest position of the map. Have been cleared, flattened, or renovated. We mentioned before how if we have a natural area where something has been removed, we can use the word cleared. So this would be the best option here. So the fields in the southwest have been cleared, and a cinema and railway station have been either built or constructed. We can see on the map the cinema here and the railway station. I'm just going to zoom in again to show you that detail. There we go. The railway station and the cinema are now in the place of the fields in the southwest of the map. Okay. Another question for you. Just next to the right of, or above Lenton Housing Estate, remember Lenton Housing Estate is here, we'll zoom in a moment. Lord Westley's house has been torn down, renovated or converted into the Red Lion Pub and Lenton Hotel. So think about the position here of the Lenton Housing Estate and Lord Westley's house. We can see that on the 1815 map here. I'm going to zoom in again for you for a few seconds. You can see this question also below the video on your screen. You can see the map there too. So take a look and choose the correct options to answer this question, please. Okay, shall we have a look together? So just above Lenton Housing Estate, remember Lenton Housing Estate was here and Lord Wesley's house was directly to the north of that, and we can see now that we have in its place the Red Lion pub and Lenton Hotel. So we would say that Lord Wesley's house has been converted into, here we need the preposition to make this answer correct. I'm going to zoom into the map again just to show you that we have Lord Wesley's house, and this has been converted, and we now have the Red Lion and the Lenton Hotel, which is above the Lenton Housing Estate. Great. Okay. One more question for you. The residential area has expanded, grown or shrunk, and now also includes businesses and shops. Let's think about the residential area. Now, this is the residential area. We have a residential area here, and previously we had this area of houses. We'll just zoom in on the map for a moment so you can see. There we had the residential area before. Now we have residential area and the residential area here. So look at those differences. What's changed? And if we zoom out again, the residential area has expanded, grown or shrunk, and now also includes businesses and shops. Have a look at the next question below this video and choose the correct answer. Okay, so I think in this case there are two possible answers. We could say that the area has expanded or the area has grown. Both cases means that they've got bigger. We see the housing area from 1815 and we see now that it's bigger than it was previously, and we also have those businesses and those shopping areas as well. Excellent. Okay, let's think about grammar for maps. So what grammar do you need to use for describing maps? If we've got two maps in the past, probably we want to be using past simple to think about those two maps and how we can talk about them. Sometimes, as in the example that we've just seen, we've got one map in the past and we've got one map now. So we're thinking about what happened in the past, but we're also thinking about changes over time from then until now. So we're going to be using present perfect to talk about the changes between then and now. We're going to be using past simple to talk about the situation in the past, and present simple to talk about the situation now. We have lots of different grammatical possibilities in this instance. Another possibility is that we have one map in the past and we have one map in the future. Now, maybe if we have a future map, what we have is a projection for an area, how it's going to be changed or developed or expanded in the future. So we'd want to be using past simple there to talk about the past, and we'd want to be talking about future forms, about what was going to happen, what will happen when the plan was implemented. Similarly, maybe we have one map now and in the future. In this case, we're going to be using present simple to talk about now and future forms to talk about what will happen as time goes on. Also passive forms. Often in maps we don't see the people doing the actions, we see what's happened. Here the focus is on what has happened rather than who has done that action. So we can use a lot of passive forms as well. Some active forms, not all passive forms, we don't want to use too much passive. We have to make sure we use what sounds right at each particular moment. And we also need comparative structures. Remember that in academic writing task 1, it's really important that you compare. So you're comparing always map 1 with map 2, talking about the changes and differences. So comparative structures are very important. Here's our map again. Now remember, we had Wesley in 1815 and we had Wesley now. So the question on your screen is, which tenses do you think you will need to use for this map? So should we use present simple, past simple, present perfect, or future forms to talk about this map? Have a look at the next question below this video on your screen and choose what you think would be the most suitable tenses to use for this map. We're probably going to use quite a lot of present perfect in this map because we're talking about 1815 in the past and what has happened between then and now. So that's going to be something we rely on quite a lot. Also, we're probably going to be using the past simple to talk about the situation in Wesley in 1815 and the present simple to talk about what the situation is currently now. So a combination of those 3 verb tenses would be good. We're going to revisit now passives and think about passives. We've got 4 sentences on the screen here, and I'd like you to answer the question, which of these contain passives? First, we're going to read through the sentences, and then you're going to look at the next question on your screen under this video and choose the correct answers. So number 1, Lenton Woods has been cut down and replaced with a housing estate. Number 2, the museum will be converted into a primary school. Number 3, the city is going to become less agricultural. Most of the farms will be cleared to make way for new houses and shops. Jammers Park was replaced with an industrial estate. Have a look please at that next question on your screen under this video and choose the correct answers now. Okay, let's have a look together. Hopefully you chose the right answer, which was all of them. All of these examples contain some passive forms. Let's have a look at them. Lenton Woods has been cut down and replaced with a housing estate. Here we can recognize the passive because we have here the verb has and then cut down, but we have the verb be in the middle. So this is present perfect passive. We need to make sure that we have the verb be, we need to make sure we have a past participle, and of course we have to have any other elements that are essential to that verb tense. In this case, present perfect passive, we need has, we need been, and we need the past participle of that main verb cut down. The museum will be converted into a primary school. Here we have a future form. We have will. After will, we always need be if we use the passive. Will is always plus the infinitive, as we know, and we need the verb to be, and we need the past participle of that main verb, which here is converted. Number 3, the city is going to become less agricultural. We don't have any passive in that part of the phrase, but the second part of the phrase, most of the farms will be cleared to make way for new houses and shops. Again, this is the same example as above. We have will plus be plus past participle, will plus be plus past participle to make a future passive. And finally, sentence 4, Jammers Park was replaced with an industrial estate. we have was, which is the past simple, and we have replaced, which is the past participle of the main verb. So here we have past simple, passive. That's important. I hope you got those right in the questions below the screen. Quick recap then of active and passive forms. In the past simple, the active form, we would use that past simple verb, for example, built. And if we want to make this into the passive, we still need the past participle form. In this case, it's the same form, but we must have the correct form of the verb to be. So in this case, was or were, because it's be in the past simple. This would be the passive form. Present perfect, we always have has or have plus built, which is the past participle form, yes? When we convert this form from active into passive, we have to make sure we add the verb to be. So from having two parts of that verb phrase, has and built, we now have three, has been built or have been built. Similarly, in the future, will is always plus the infinitive form. In this case, will build, we have two words that make up that future tense. When we make this into passive, we have to have a form of the verb to be. So those two words become three. Will build becomes will be built. Okay, now that is the end of the class. Remember that if you have any questions, you can go to this chat icon at the top of the web page. You can click here and you can send us a message. So this is the first of two classes. So now it's important that you take the second class, watch the second video, and also do the related training and practice activities to this session. Thank you very much for listening, and we hope to see you again soon. Bye-bye.